Good afternoon. This is my first episode in English. It is as requested by so many friends and followers since I'm not using subtitles on my Arabic broadcasting. Their ideas, and I have to say it's mine as well, that my way of looking into things should be heard on a more larger audience. So as many should hear my perspective that could represent one of the Middle Eastern views into international as well as domestic and regional politics. Whether they are right or I, it remains to be seen and evaluated by you. And I will dedicate an episode weekly to discuss political matters every Saturday. It will be broadcasted around 9 p.m. Egyptian time under the main title, The Edge. Our first episode has a title of End of Trumpism and Putinism, between wishful thinking and reality. There is no doubt that both Putin and Trump are the most dominant figures in the last decade, the most controversial as well. Some like them a lot, and some wish they both disappear soon from the political sphere. In this episode, we will discuss the two figures in the context of two main events. Trump with his announcement running again for 2024 presidential election and campaign, and Putin in light of the one ballistic missile that landed in Poland near the Ukrainian border. Against all odds, where the Republicans underperformed in the midterm Congress elections and the Republican voices raised against him, as well as the loss of election deniers, almost all of them, Trump decided to run again for president. Most commentators, the pro-Democrats mainly, are saying it's definitely a forthcoming big defeat for Trump, that he's lost his magnetism and aura. Is this a reality or just wishful thinking? I personally phrase it under a wishful thinking. Like it or not, Trump is still very popular, a very popular figure in America, to the extent that he alone overshadowed the popularity of the GOP collectively and has managed to tag the Republican Party as whole to his persona and his political agenda, despite some shy opposition coming from some individuals in the GOP. A lot of Americans, mainly Democrats, do not like the state of polarization Trump is imposing on the political panorama of the US. But looking at it thoroughly with with an unbiased eye, it becomes obvious that this polarization is contributed to by the Democrats themselves. Though the negative propaganda that it generated about Trump in the pro-democratic media, which means the Democrats too are falling into Trump's trap, and without intentions. They are falling that state of polarization as if America at large, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, including the Biden administration, are all becoming under the Trumpism spell. That is definitely in favor of Trump. Extra negativity could alienate the non-alienated and could gain Trump a lot of independent and swinging votes in the presidential election. In mathematics, a double negative is a positive sign. To summarize the Trump affair, Trump is and still and will be a major force in the US and has a good chance of winning a second term, to enter the American history as the second American president to win a second non-consecutive term. Now moving from polarization to another kind of polarization on the international level, from Trumpism to Putinism. You'll find the same scenario. The against Putin are making the same mistake and falling under the Putin's spell. Two missiles, some say it's only one missile or one projectile, landed in Poland. And minutes later, Zelensky addressed the world with a definite conclusion and accusation that these missiles were part of Russian aggression. And immediately afterwards, the media went into this direction as well. Despite the measured approach of Biden, the Pentagon, the NATO, and the Polish themselves. Hours later, it was discovered that these missiles are Ukrainian, not Russian. And instead of dealing professionally with the embarrassment, the media, the Pentagon, and the NATO put still the blames on the Russians as a result of barraging Ukraine with missiles hits, and doubled down on the blame by blaming it further on the outdated technology the Ukrainians are using with their S-300 Russian stock of air defense missiles. And going further still with the justification for more sophisticated air defense weaponry needed to be supplied to Ukraine. As a matter of fact, it looked comic to me. It was actually a bit farcical as well. Hearing Lloyd Austin, the American Secretary of Defense, saying that the US alone has supplied Ukraine with over $18 billion worth of weapons, and Ukraine is still using Russian S-300 is a bit farcical. And hearing Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, that Ukraine is not to be blamed for the missiles landed in Poland is also a bit farcical. But the more farcical of it all is Ursula von der Leyen, saying that at the time we were discussing possible peace between Russia and Ukraine, Russia is barraging the civilian infrastructure of Ukraine. I don't know what peace is that they were discussing or Ursula is talking about. While listening and cheering for the ridiculous speech of Zelensky with his 10 commandments of peace with Russia and his analogy of his Kherson advance as a D-Day in Normandy. All of a sudden, Zelensky is becoming the Roosevelt, Churchill, and Eisenhower all together. And the free world is cheering, Hail Zelensky. And are all discussing the illegality of the Russian invasion into Ukraine. And it's definitely illegal in the same sense that invading Iran and Afghanistan were also illegal as well. But, I mean, was it legal to encourage Ukraine on becoming a NATO member? Was it legal not to listen to Putin's warnings against it? Was it legal to incite a revolution in Ukraine in 2014? The nutshell here is that the West do not want peace. They want Russia beaten. And they want China beaten if it takes the same course with Taiwan. And imagining Russia or China beaten is actually imagining the unimaginable. Because it will not happen, or at least it will not happen in proxy. The only way it could happen, if it happens alone or ever, is by waging a third war, a third world war, with a destruction like we've never seen before. Is this what the West wants? I even doubt that. So why not cut the story short and sit on the table instead of putting the destiny of the world in the hands of a micro Zelensky before it's too late? To summarize this episode, Trump and Putin are here to stay, and they will not be beaten that easily or disappear, not without a fight or a change of strategy. Here ends my first episode in English. Hope it gains your liking so as to continue or not. Thank you. You've been with Hussam Nassar, a poet, writer, and a political analyst and a former First Undersecretary of State for Foreign Cultural Relations. Thank you, and until we meet again, keep on.